I will make a brief presentation about this building based on the concept of quotation and translation in architectural design, and I think I will explain myself.
I think we can do
in English.
Yeah.
Okay, good. The location is Atami. It's roughly a couple of hours by train from Tokyo to the side. Here you can see the view, so it's on a steep cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I'm mentioning this because the landscape and the topography had a special meaning and guided some design choices that Bruno Taut made. Actually, at the top there you can see Kengo Kuma's water glass house, and actually he came to know this project because he did his own design very close, and he basically discovered that there was a building underneath. But this is not Taut's building. This is a building that existed before, that the client, Mr. Hyuga, had built, but he wanted somehow to have a garden. But since there was a steep cliff, there was no possibility to have a garden. And so the idea was to make a large building company called Shimizu Corporation build a concrete structure so he could have a hanging garden, which is this one. And then he had basically some space underneath, and that space basically could be used. And I think Professor Speidel will explain how he came to know Taut and basically how Taut got involved into the project. So this is the historical background. So Taut's task was to do the interior design of this existing concrete structure. And now I come to the concept of quotation and translation. So if you have a look at what quotation and translation can mean, just the definition, you have something that can be repeated exactly, but maybe in a different context, for instance, but you keep it the way it is without changing. And then the idea of translation is that you take something and you keep the same meaning, but you just change the form of it. And I think I will show a couple of examples of how those two concepts of quotation and translation could be applied when investigating the building. This doesn't have anything to do with Taut, but it's just an example of what I mean with quotation and translation. That is the Ningbo History Museum by Wanshu in China. It's a wonderful experience to see his buildings in Ningbo and Hangzhou. So if you have the possibility, it's really a great experience. And then when you go around the villages around Ningbo, you start seeing something like this. Of course, this is dictated by poverty of means, basically. So, of course, they didn't have enough stone of the same kind, enough tiles of the same kind, and they did a sort of mix. They did a mix. And I think that the reference to that is relatively clear, even though this is structural and that is not. This is just applied in front of the concrete wall. So this is what I mean with quotation and translation, and how this could be applied then to Taut. Another example, still from Wanshu, is the new Academy of Art in Hangzhou. Wonderful in terms of the relationship of the landscape and building. And then when you go to some Chinese gardens, you will start to see that they have a very Baroque nature, I would say. And this is one of the openings that you find in the garden as a sort of passageway. And then you see those openings in Wanshu's building, which somehow work differently. This is somehow, we could say, a door, a passageway. The other is an opening to bring light and view. But you see somehow the idea. So you're framing a series of views through those openings. And now we come to the building itself, and I will show a couple of examples that I believe can be considered quotation and translations. It's a series of 3 rooms. The first room is the ping pong room, the Mozart room. Here you can see a close-up of the plan. Here you come with the stair from the upper building down, and then here you access the main hall with a sort of entrance hall with a sofa that is not existing anymore, unfortunately. There you can see, but now after the last renovation they got rid of that, unfortunately. And here you can see those two elements. This sort of bamboo screen and this wall covered by bamboo. So, of course, bamboo is we can say it's a sort of a construction material in Japan, but it's not really that widely used. And this part is present in the interview with Kengo Kuma. So Tao would love very much Katsura Villa. And then when you visit Katsura Villa, you start seeing some of the references that he made when working on this project. And if you see that fence of Katsura Villa's garden, and then see some detailing of what Tao did, I think you start seeing some sort of reference and some sort of quotation or translation, either directly quoting or modifying a little bit what he had seen. And in those details of the railing that he did for the little stair, and how the joints between the bamboo rods are made. And here's a little close-up of that particular space with the railing, this bamboo screen, the bamboo wall, and those hung lights. And they are the theme of the next reference, those wavy lights. And those are, like we can say, typical series of lanterns during festivals, during Matsuri that are happening all around Japan. And this is basically, it's not the historic reference, but it's just speculation of what could have been some sort of inspiration to do those sort of wavy series of lights. Here is the middle room, the so-called Western Beethoven room, with basically the dining room. Here a close-up of the space. Here you can see a close-up of the upper niche of this building. And what is interesting here is that if you notice here, the ceiling of this upper space is not flat, but is basically sloping downwards. And if you're there, you will start to notice that through this device of the sloping ceiling and the raised platform and the specific way the landscape and then the ocean is framed, when you're sitting there or when you're standing, you just have a kind of screen of basically a water wall when you're there. So this is really a peculiar way to play with the landscape through those sort of gestures and the design choices. And here you can see, standing from that raised platform and looking down, you see those windows, this kind of slow, sliding, folding windows. And this is just, of course, just a speculation, but when you see those Japanese folding screens and byogu, how they are called, I think it's not very difficult to see some sort of connection and some possible references where these ideas could have come from. And this is the last series of rooms with basically the Japanese room here and the little bedroom on this corner. Here a close-up of the space, and here one of the very atmospheric pictures that they took. And here you see the relationship between ceiling and floor. It's a tatami mat floor, and the specific thing is that he chose to lay out the tatami mats following just one direction, basically to emphasize the view towards the landscape. So you have those strong lines pointing at one direction, even though this is not really typical in residential architecture, where you have two directions put 90 degrees. And then you see basically the small beams of the drop ceiling running in the opposite direction. And here again, when you visit some of the rooms of Katsura, you would find something that works in a very similar way, with those tatami laid out in the same direction, and the main beams of the ceiling going opposite 90 degrees. And here is the ramma, this division of the space in the upper level, and here it's basically a feature that you find extensively with those thin rods in Katsura Villa. And here you can see a sketch by Taut himself where he's saying that this is actually not decoration, this is not just a decorative element, but it's just a way to divide the space. That's what he's writing in that sketch. And this is just the last slide and a small quotation by Taut with this very beautiful picture of Dave, where he really is saying that it took so much effort to prepare all the details of this building, because when you go there you start realizing that the careful choice of materials, of colors, of details, of shapes, it was an incredible work. He didn't do it by himself, he had some Japanese architects to help him, but it's really an extremely careful work when you go see the building. And we hope that through the drawings and the pictures by Dave, you could have a glimpse of the beauty of the project and of the care with which the project was done. And I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.